I'm sure many of you have heard American politicians say again and again, as a Catholic, I personally believe everything the church teaches, but I won't impose those beliefs on people who aren't Catholic or who do not believe in God. This is the very argument President Joe Biden has made on numerous occasions, drawing what appears to be a neat and respectful distinction between his private faith and his public office. But that leads to an important question. As a Catholic serving in public office, can you truly maintain that separation, or does that way of thinking stand in tension with the Catholic faith itself? Before we explore that tension any further, let's listen carefully to what he says in this clip. Let's listen.
I'm prepared to accept a fide doctrine on a whole range of issues as a Catholic. My wife and I, my family, the issue of abortion. But what I'm not prepared to do is impose a rigid view that is born out of my faith on other people who are equally God-fearing, equally as committed to life, equally as committed to the sanctity of life. And all the principles of my faith, I make no excuse for attempting to live up to. I don't all the time. But I'm not prepared to impose doctrine that I'm prepared to accept.
As you just heard, he says he accepts the church's teaching and tries to live by them personally, but when it comes to public policy, he will not impose them on others. In other words, he affirms the teaching privately, but sets it aside publicly, and that creates two serious problems. The first point is actually very simple once we strip it down. Right and wrong are not merely Catholic ideas. They are not private devotional preferences like choosing a style of prayer or a spiritual discipline. The belief that innocent human life has value is something affirmed across religious traditions and even by many who claim no religious belief at all. This is what Catholics refer to as natural law, the idea that certain moral truths are woven into the very structure of reality and can be known through human reason. So when someone says abortion is wrong, they are not necessarily making a sectarian argument rooted in theology alone. They are making a moral claim grounded in human dignity, reason, and the intrinsic worth of the person. That is a universal claim, not a Catholic one. And once we understand that, the second issue becomes clearer and far more practical. What exactly is the role of a lawmaker? Every law reflects a moral judgment about what is good and what is harmful, about what should be encouraged and what should be restrained. Traffic laws exist because lawmakers believe safety and order are good. Violent crimes are prohibited because harming others is wrong. Theft is restricted because private property matters. But you will never hear a politician say, I personally believe violence is wrong, but I won't allow that belief to influence public policy. In fact, the entire legal system rests on shared moral assumptions about right and wrong. So when a politician creates a separation between personal conviction and public action, you can reasonably conclude that something else is driving that decision. This is precisely why Bishop Barron responds in the next clip, not to attack for sake of politics, but to ask whether this reasoning actually holds together logically and morally. Let's listen.
My major problem with the Democratic Party of today is this very extreme position that they've taken on abortion. And I said, that's where I just, really balk. At which point my interlocutors all said, how important it is to dialogue between the church and pro-abortion right politicians. And I said, yeah, okay, I'm for a dialogue. The church has always said, though obviously we oppose all abortions, we'd love to see a complete ban of abortion. Nevertheless, we'll dialogue if you're willing to set some restrictions. We'll talk to you about that. We'll get behind bills that would restrict the taking of innocent life. So I said, yeah, I'm open to dialogue. But then I began sort of testing the waters. I said, okay, let's say we're having a conversation about this issue. Would you be willing, for example, to limit third trimester abortions? Answer came back, no. I said, how about so-called partial birth abortion? The procedure by which a child basically in the birth canal is killed. Answer came back, no, we would not be willing to give on that. So I said, okay, how about the born alive legislation? You know what that's about. These are laws that say we should protect a child who has somehow, by a miracle, managed to survive an abortion procedure and is now on the table. Would you be willing to support that legislation? And the answer came back, no. And just so you don't think the group I was talking to was particularly intransigent, just a few months ago, Senator Ben Sasse proposed this legislation. He said, look, can't we all agree across the aisle that a baby writhing on the table, having survived an abortion procedure, should be protected? Can we all agree with that? And of course, he didn't get the votes to break the Democratic filibuster. So see, here is my question. I said, all right, dialogue. Let's talk about it. But if this is the case, what exactly are we dialoguing about? I asked. In any real dialogue, it seems to me, there's a kind of give and take. There's a willingness to, each side going a few steps in the other direction. I think of the many interreligious and ecumenical dialogues I've been involved in over the years. I mean, no one expected the people in those conversations to be somehow religiously neutral or to give up their religious convictions, but the condition for the possibility of a real dialogue is some kind of give and take, some quest for common ground. Usually we'd find, points of contact between our religious perspectives. So I pressed the matter with the politicians. Are you willing to give on this question at all? If protecting the life of a baby writhing on the table, having survived an abortion procedure, if that's too much, again, what precisely are we dialoguing about?
As you just heard, Bishop Barron argues that the Democratic Party's position on abortion rights has become so firm that in some instances it has resisted legislation designed to ensure medical care for infants who survive procedures. And if a political party cannot defend a child who is born alive, then we are no longer talking merely about public policy, but about a society that has chosen to disregard human life at its most vulnerable stage. So when the debate reaches that level, no argument or explanation can easily justify such a position. And this disregard for human life is not a new phenomenon. We have seen it throughout history, from ancient Rome to the 20th century. When those in authority decide that certain lives are burdensome, they find justifications to eliminate them. That is why in the final clip, Bishop Barron turns directly to Catholics who support abortion rights and invites them to reconsider whether their public stance truly aligns with the faith they profess and the moral principles they claim to believe. Let's listen carefully.
So I'll make this very blunt and specific. I would say to Catholics especially who are supporting the right to abortion, okay, are you willing to support this born alive legislation as a first step? That's all I'm asking. Are you willing to say, yes, we should protect the lives of a child that survived an abortion procedure? If you're not, again, I don't know exactly what the point or purpose of the dialogue would be. And I think that's why, to some degree, we've come to an impasse on this matter. What are you willing to give? What are you willing to accept? I propose that protecting the life of a child who survived an abortion procedure as at least a first step.
And I think what Bishop Barron proposes at the end is actually very simple and very reasonable as a starting point. He's not asking pro-choice Catholics to resolve every moral disagreement overnight or to untangle every complex policy debate in a single moment. He's asking for one clear and functional moral line. Can we at least agree that a child who is born alive must be protected and cannot be intentionally harmed? Because if we cannot agree on the dignity of every human being, no matter what stage of development they are in, then we are no longer debating policy, we are debating what it means to be human. As St. John Paul II wrote in Evangelium Vitae, the gospel of life is at the heart of Jesus' message, and to proclaim Jesus is to proclaim life itself. So to pro-choice Catholics, I would ask, are you proclaiming life and are you proclaiming Jesus? I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.